Down4Sound and amplifiers. Yes, my friends, they have a broad range of amplifiers, including 4 new straight out of Korea models, the JP33, 43, 63, and 83. And they range anywhere from 3,300 watts to 4,300 to 6,300 to 8,300. Yes, we're going to be testing them all. But today, we're going to start off with the smallest one, the JP33. All the amplifiers are monoblocks. The JP33 is 3,300 watts RMS, shows up at $599 at the time of this video, but I would not expect it to stay that low. So let's unbox one of these and see what's inside the box. Probably an amplifier. So it's double boxed. The outer box for the amplifier is really cool because it shows you, the inputs, the switches, the outputs, everything on there. And it's just really cool color and all that. So they did that with all the different amps. I would say make sure you hang on to the box if you get one of these, because you definitely want your amplifier to go with the box if you ever sell it. As far as the RMS power, again, 3,300 at 1 ohm, 2,300 at 2 ohms, and these are linkable. Very high signal to noise ratio, 96 dB. Does have a Bluetooth bass knob. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Once we open it up, yes, there is another box. So let's pull the amp out, and then let's check out the accessories that come with the amplifier. First up, this little baggie has 2 of Allen's keys, as well as an adjustment screwdriver for the gains. Owner's manual, which covers the 33, 43, 63, and 83. We have a USB-C to USB-A cable. We'll show you what that's for here in a minute. It is actually for the bass remote. This is a wireless bass remote, which has all the features of the other ones, the voltage, the temperature, the clipping, volume, and this one actually turns on and off the amplifier as well. You can see on the back the USB-C connection. Now, what you need to understand about this is it does not have an internal battery. So when I first got it, I plugged it in and then plugged it into the USB source and tried to charge it up, and it didn't give me any indication. I was like, hey, what's going on here? And they said, well, it doesn't have a battery inside. And if you think about it, it's just easier to not have to run the bass remote cable to the back of your car to the amp. So this just connects straight up to the amp, and you still have to plug it in, of course, to give it a power source. But overall, I really like the function of how this works. There are some quirks. We'll talk about that later. Here is the Battleship Gray JP33. Very unique finish here. It is anodized aluminum. Again, they call it the Battleship Gray. It's a very cool looking amp. Here on one side of the amp, you can see the power, protect, and clip LEDs, the gain from 0.2 to 6 volts, subsonic 10 hertz to 50 hertz, low pass 250 down to 35, phase 0 to 180. You also have the output master, input slave. Really nice RCA jacks here. These are Tiffany style. Very thick, and some of the best Tiffany style connectors I've seen, honestly. On the right side, there are dual speaker outputs. This is a monoblock. However, having multiple speaker connections is very helpful. These are up to 4 gauge as well, which is pretty incredible. On the opposite side, 1-aught inputs. We have dual 1-aught inputs for power and ground. Remote terminal there is on the left connector between those 2 power and grounds. There's also enough room there if you want to use dual inputs to be able to use those. As far as ratings go, 4 ohms, 1200 watts, 2 ohms, 2300, 1 ohm, 3300, all at 14.4. As far as dimensions, 13.8 length, 9.4 inches width, 2.6 inches in the height, as well as millimeter equivalents there for people outside of the US. As far as connecting it to the amp dyno, here are the default settings that I use. Gain is matched to the head unit with a 9 dB overlap using DD1 Plus on the dyno. Subsonic is set to minimum. Low pass filter is set to max. The phase is set to 0. Master, slave set to master because we're testing 1 amp. Now let's fire up the good old SMD, Demo Engineering Amplifier Dyno, to do our RMS power output testing of this amplifier. Before we do that, make sure you check the video description for links to Wilson Audio merch. Smash me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this content. More like it coming all the time. Now let's talk about the Dyno Tests. There's 3 different tests: certified, uncertified, and dynamic. Certified test takes us up to 1% THD, uncertified takes us up to the clipping point, and dynamic is a dynamic tone mimicking IHF 202 standard. For those who haven't seen the test before, the amp dyno displays the wattage output, the ohm load, the voltage, as well as I have a clamp up there at the top so you can see the current pull. All the numbers are RMS. 4 ohms mono, the amp is rated 1200 watts at 14.4. Let's see what we get here. Certified test first, 1% THD. Yeah boy, 1911 watts at 14.77. Voltage is going to be a little strong across these tests, of course, because we're using our lithium LTO bank, and it likes to hold up in the high 14s. Here we go, uncertified at 4 ohms, 1969, 14.72. Let's reset the dyno here for the dynamic run. Check that inrush current up there on the clamp meter. But as far as dynamic power, 1959 at 14.77. Inrush 189 amps of current. Efficiency, wow, 96% efficient at 4 ohms. If you want to get one of these and run them just at 4 ohms, that would be a really good way to use the amp. 2 ohms is rated 2300 watts at 14.4. Based on our first test, I think we're going to easily get that. And yes, we do. 3139 at 14.66. So it does more than 3K at 2 ohms. Reminds me a lot of the Orion 3K HCCA SPLX, if you ask me. Let's go uncertified up to clipping at 2 ohms. Keeps counting. Where's it going to stop? 3352, 14.52. This amp has got some power, but you have to have the electrical for it as well. Dynamic, let's send that pulse tone into the amp. 3661 at 14.81. Now what about the efficiency at 2 ohms? We know at 4 ohms it was really good. At 2 ohms is still excellent, 89%. That's superb. All right, 1 ohm, here we go, rated 3300 watts at 14.4. What are we gonna get? 3300 plus over 1000, 4484 at 14.5 volts. Yo, that's kicking it. Uncertified up to clipping. Can we bust 5K? Yes, we can. 50-50 at 14.36. Yo, this thing just busted 5,000 watts. What about that dynamic power? Easily over 5,000. 5585. Our voltage, nope, look at that, it kept counting. It's because the lithium rebounded. We got extra voltage. 6229 at 14.65. The efficiency at 1 ohm, 75%. So it's not excellent, but not bad at all. Now for the results, you pretty much just saw all these tests. You're welcome to pause this if you want to review the results, but basically it did well above rating at every single test. Now if you want to see 8.8 and lower, you got to stick around to the very end of the video. Now let's find out what's inside. I bet there's some electronics. Now this amp has an acrylic panel on the bottom, but in order for you to see it better, I wanted to take it off, and there's a connection there for the fan that you have to unplug. One thing you may not notice here is the size. It is kind of small for a half-bridge 3K, and that's due to the fact that it has a lot of surface mount components here and not through the hole. For power supply filtering, 1200 microfarad, 35 volts there on the power supply section. On the output section, 160 volts, 680 microfarad. And there's also this unique module here. This is the Bluetooth. This is what you use the wireless remote for. And here I'll show the wireless remote. You actually push the wireless remote. It will power up the amplifier as well, give you access to the voltage, to the Fahrenheit, to the Celsius, however you like to read your temperature. Also has a clip indicator, and it has a volume. Now what you'll notice here is when I turn the volume, it takes a lot of rotations to get to 100%. So I'll talk about that when I get to the pros and cons of the amp. But the other thing to remember is you do have to have it plugged into the USB-C, and it has to be plugged into a power source, either like a battery bank, or if you have an adapter for your vehicle, or a vehicle made in the last 8 or so years, you'll have a USB port. So that's really convenient, and you don't have to run any wires. So love that. Now let's find out, shall it have bumpeth? Let's check out. Another Bassotronics Big Wizzy bass of Halloween. we got to do the woofer test. Here we go. All right, now let's talk about the pros and cons, the things I like, the things I think could be better, or just things that you need to realize. Rated Power Plus in all modes in this amp. It is a beast, has double 1-aught inputs, is linkable if you want to hook up multiple amps, has active cooling with a fan that's very quiet. Really nice Tiffany RCAs, keeps your RCAs connected well. Efficiency is very good. The Bluetooth bass remote is awesome, has a plexi bottom. Can it handle low impedances? We will find out. Things to consider, the Bluetooth remote does need power. It also has very slow ramping. It takes about 4.5 turns to get to maximum volume on the remote. You will need upgrade electrical to run this amp, so make sure you plan for that. Korean made equals more money. A lot of people want Korean made, but it does cost more. The price is likely to rise. This is an introductory offer here at the price that it's shown. Not sure it'll stay there very long. Beefy amp, did a lot of power, has great features. If you want to check one of these out, check my link in the video description. If you do buy one, it does help me out. I am affiliated with Down4Sound. However, this review here is my thoughts, and amp did well. So thanks as always for watching. Until next time, Big D, I'm out of here. So instead of buying more power, a lot of you want to wire low. So let's try low ohm load test. 0.8 first. It's getting low in here. Certified up to 1% THD. 4,314 watts at 15 volts. Again, this amp is strong. If you have the battery capacity or the electrical capacity, this amp will perform. 5,647 uncertified at 0.8. Let's try that dynamic run at 0.8, see what we get. Sending the pulse tone of 40 hertz into the amp. And yes, look at this. So we're going to bust 7K right at it. 6965 at 14.64. Well, what about even lower? 0.67. Let's drop it like it's hot. Certified at 0.67. 4868 at 14.8 volts. So right at 5,000 watts at 0.67. Uncertified up to clipping. 5693, 14.64. What about dynamic at 0.67? Yes, my friends, we're pushing 8,500. 8445. Now, half an ohm, again, on the dyno, half an ohm is like a quarter ohm or less with speakers because this doesn't have any impedance rise at all. We got 9332, but however, and you can see 945 amps of instant draw. The amp did go into protect at half an ohm dynamic, but that's okay because that's what we want. If an amp is supposed to go into protect at low impedances, then let it do it as long as it comes back out of protect. And this amp came back out of protect, no problems. Flipped it back on, we're good to go. All right, Big D out.